There does seem to be some panic within Republican circles about what's going on. You're starting to see people say, like, he's going to dump Vance. I don't think he'll do that. You're also starting to see, like, Trump going out at, in front of donors and blaming Vance for stuff, which, shoe might fit a little bit. But this is going to really scare the Trump people. Here is CNN's Harry Enton. And one of the things that we talked about, the value of an Andy Bashir or a Tim Walz, is that they can go into places in between the rural areas, not, beat Trump there, but can carry a message that might ever so slightly close the gap a little bit, because this is so much about margins. They sent Andy Bashir to Forsyth County. I imagine you'll start to see, Walz go into places like Georgia and, even North Carolina. And you'll see him definitely, obviously, throughout Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania. And it just seems like, just off the top of the bat, like, I don't know if it's a function of Walz, but this I found really surprising, particularly at this stage.
So, Harry, we know, obviously, you look at the overall polls, you see these swing state polls, the ones over the weekend from Siena did stand out. We'll see if that's really where this goes. But you found something very interesting in terms of one group that stands out.
White working class voters, white voters without a college degree. That is Donald Trump's core group. That was the reason why he was able to break down that giant blue wall, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, in the Great Lakes. And look at their support now versus where we were a few months ago when the matchup was between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Look, Donald Trump still leads, but look at that margin. It has shrunk significantly. It was 25 points back in May. It is now 14 points now here in August, nearly been sliced by half. Those numbers that Harris is putting up amongst that group right now are actually slightly better than Joe Biden did 4 years ago amongst those voters in those key states. Those are the types of numbers that Kamala Harris needs to put up in order to win. And of course, Joe Biden was like, I don't want to drop out of the race because I'm not sure that Kamala Harris can break in with this group, but it turns out she absolutely can.
Which is fascinating.
Pause it for a second. I mean, she's outperforming Biden did in 2020. And I want to make something clear here, too. We've talked about this. Imagine the electorate is a pie, right? And Donald Trump won one slice of pie, a cohort, white working class, older people, largely also white people. Joe Biden won, in 2020, younger people, people of color, black, brown, Asian, women. Joe Biden's cohorts have grown. Donald Trump's cohorts have shrunk. So even if the pie, the percentages, the cohorts still go to where they went last time, Biden would win, on that coalition by millions more votes than he did in 2020, because those segments of the population are simply more populous than they were. There are more people in them than they were in 2020. It's not just the basic, people die, older people die, and there's more younger people. It's also like the generations. Generation X was smaller relative to the boomers, but the boomers are starting to go off. The millennials are huge. And so if she's outpacing Biden in the cohort that Trump won, you're starting to get into, and it's very early for this stuff, but you're starting to get into the potential of what would constitute in this day and age a landslide. That's not, we're not in, 1972 anymore. We're not going to have a landslide, but like a very, very robust win, considering where we've been, back down to like 2008 type of levels. Slightly different coalition, perhaps, but we'll see. We'll continue with this.
Can break in with this group, but it turns out she absolutely can.
Which is fascinating, because originally when they started, right, it was an immediate map expansion. They started looking at Georgia, North Carolina even, not giving up, but it seemed like sort of accepting that conventional wisdom. Correct. And now it's fascinating that may not be the case. So also the economy. when we look at that, were talking about that. That's an issue Trump has been extremely strong on. Is that changing?
It is. I mean, again, look, we're still looking at Trump having a clear advantage amongst white working class voters in, the Great Lake battleground states. But again, the margin is shrinking, and elections are all about margins. You see it shrinking. He had a 36-point advantage in May. It's now down to 24 points here in August. These are the types of numbers that Kamala Harris needs to put up. And more than that, it's about the economy. This is also a change election, and it's also about change as well. And she's breaking through among white working class voters on the issue of change. So the economy and change working for her cohesively.
You're talking about Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. There, obviously, those are crucial. That's that blue wall. But when you look more broadly, does this tip the scale as you look at other crucial must-win states?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Non-college whites are a key group across the board. They are a plurality of voters in the electorate when you compare them with college-educated whites or if you compare them with African Americans and Hispanics, and especially in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. Look at that. They're the majority of voters. The fact that Harris is closing in on Trump with them is the big reason why she has those advantages she has now in those New York Times Siena College
Absolutely
polls.
Fascinating.
I mean, it's a big deal, and it's got to make them panic. Now, just to be clear, it's August 14th. We have 3 months to go, and the cohort of people who are going to ultimately make the difference in this election don't really start engaging for another month. And, everyone who's hearing the sound of my voice or seeing my image right now are atypical relative to sort of like, how people follow politics. There's a lot, obviously, I mean, a significant, the majority of the country, without a doubt, is following this race at this point. But the cohort that could end up deciding it is not. So this could all change. But if the election was held with these type of numbers holding fast, it would be nuts. With that said, that the polling numbers are starting to look very good when you dig into these pollings, like in terms of how Harris matches up with different groups and how she matches up with Trump on different characteristics. Again, we'll see what happens with the Democratic convention. There's going to be a lot of protests there. We'll see if that inhibits things. Who knows what could come up in the next 3 or 4 months. But this is not a good sign for Trump either. If Republicans start to distance themselves from Trump, you're going to start to see the indication of that from the sort of lobbyist class and from the sort of big name never Trumpers who had signed on and became Trumpers. So it's not like, the Lincoln Project people. They're orphaned. But when you look at someone, let's say like Kevin McCarthy, who is going to have to do business, and his whole thing is going to be doing business within the Republican Party. Who knows what he may end up, trying to become Republican chair, but who knows if that's going to happen under a Trump. But I found this pretty interesting, that McCarthy is out there and starting to criticize Trump. Go ahead.
And you've got to make this race not on personalities. Stop questioning the size of her crowds and start questioning her position when it comes to what did she do as Attorney General on crime. Question what did she do when she was supposed to take care of the border as a czar. Question that they brought inflation. And she was the tie-breaking vote when it came to inflation, when it came to IRS agents. This is a perfect person to run against. You thought John Kerry was a flip-flopper. She is the biggest flip-flop with the most extreme positions, and you got a short time frame to do it. So don't sit back, get out there and start making the case and use her own words to do it to her.
You raise money.
Okay, now if you're out there criticizing the campaign, like you're not seeing any big name Democrats going out there and criticizing Harris and Walz right now.
And McCarthy isn't like a Trump antagonist usually, and especially even going down for the speakership, he's still even being considered, or at least prior to this, there were reports that in a potential next Trump administration, he would be considered for like White House chief of staff. Like he's not someone who just like that's making any like.
Let me tell you what he's doing here is he's hedging his bets.
Right.
He is starting to build some type of narrative for the Republican Party post-Trump here, which is stunning that this is happening in August. And it's not major, and that's not the way he's going to do it. But this is the way that politicians work. They plant a couple of seeds. If things turn around, he'll never pursue this stuff again. But you don't see people going out there and criticizing Harris and Walz's campaign. They won't do that now. And then this I found also fascinating because you remember there was this Republican candidate who was staying on the ballot in the primaries and drawing some actual like votes, even though she clearly could not win. And you may have already forgotten who she is because she appeared at the convention and literally like, took the knee. I mean, I don't she like literally take the knee. Like she almost like brought like, here's some, whatever, frankincense and myrrh from, and brought it up to Trump's throne at the Republican National Convention. But here she is like realizing, maybe it's time for me to sort of like fire up the engine again. Not for this race, but like she's already looking at 2028.
This campaign to win. But the campaign is not going to win talking about crowd sizes. It's not going to win talking about what race Kamala Harris is. It's not going to win talking about whether she's dumb. It's not, you can't win on those things. The American people are smart. Treat them like they're smart.
Do you think the campaign is missing the mark on those things?
I think the campaign needs to focus. That's the main thing. Look, this is a winnable election, but you need to focus. Who is your target market? Your target market is suburban women, college-educated independents, and conservative Democrats. That's your target market. The target issues are the economy, the fact that Kamala wants to raise taxes, the fact that she's taken money from those that didn't go to college and has given it to those that did, the fact that when Afghanistan fell, the fact that when they lifted sanctions on Iran, the fact that when they, actually said that they would help Israel and then pulled back. Where was Kamala when that happened? She was sitting right next to Joe Biden in the Situation Room.
I mean, aside from like me wishing that all of those things that she said had happened, it is the idea that Donald Trump is not going to win an election, is going to win an election based upon policy is just absurd. I mean, it's just absurd. I mean, the reason why he was able to beat Hillary Clinton, there was a lot of reasons. I mean, some of which were, her failures, some of which were James Comey's failures. But the formula that Trump used was to pull her onto like personal back and forth because that's all he knows how to do. The idea that Donald Trump is going to run a campaign based upon policies only is just absurd. He exhausts his possibilities after he says immigrants are nasty, psychopaths from insane asylums. Like, that's his big policy stretch. So when Kevin McCarthy and Nikki Haley go out and start saying this stuff, they are not talking about the Trump campaign. They are creating a narrative that they hope to sort of regain control of the Republican Party if this thing goes down in flames. And it's just fascinating to me that they're doing this in August. Like, this is the type of stuff you start to see in mid-October when they think they're going to lose. Not in mid-August. Keep a watch on this, because to see who else starts to say these type of things. Because nobody, what is it? Losing campaigns are all orphans or whatever. I don't know. There's some saying. But it's fascinating to me to see this going on. with these two, in these circles. And, they're doing it on Fox. It's not like they're saying this on, I don't know where else they would go on television.
Bannon.
Yeah. Well, no, he's in jail.
Yes, they can.
I know he's talking with somebody the other day. He's broadcasting still.
Is he broadcasting still?
Unless I saw an old clip. Maybe I'll check that out.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.